Good morning, friends, and happy Thursday. Today is part 3 of our portal story. I call it our portal story because we went through a portal to get to the place that we are. And we have done, at this point, we've covered the setting, done the character, and today we're going to start working on the problem. So this is what motivates the story to move forward. And yeah, you'll notice that Fred is here today. She was like, "Mama, can I be a YouTube star?" And I told her, "I'm not a YouTube star. This isn't a YouTube star thing, Fred." And she's like, "Yes, it is. Please, Mommy. I've always wanted to be on YouTube. Please let me." And so I decided to let her be part of this today. And so she's going to be sitting here next to me. So just be used to that. So anyway, back to the problem. So we started out with our setting, and I'm going to go ahead and read those parts to you. Actually, no, I'm going to start out a little bit different. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the setting or how the problem motivates the story to move forward. If you think back to something like Charlotte's Web, and in Charlotte's Web, the story suddenly, like everything's going along, Fern has a pig, Avery and Fern are playing out in the fields, and all of a sudden, Wilbur finds out that he's going to be slaughtered to be the next year's pork roast at Christmas time and be bacon and sausage, and he freaks out. And so Charlotte goes ahead and starts making those notes in the web. If we think about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie's hungry, their family is struggling, it's cold and windy and horrible out, and they're all just having a really hard time. And then Charlie finds a golden ticket, and then all of a sudden the story starts to change. If I think about Danny, champion of the world, Danny's living in his nice little world, things are going along just fine, and then one night he wakes up and his dad is gone, and he's hunting, and then he finds out that his dad is hurt, and he has to go save his dad from the big pit. And so there's always something that starts happening that moves the story forward. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the setting and the character, and then we'll get to what I wrote, and we'll talk about what my problem is in my story. And hopefully your brain is going to start ticking, and you're going to start thinking about what is going to be the problem in my story. All right, so part 1 was the setting. One day my video game machine wouldn't turn on. I tried to fix it by checking the connections, and when I peeked behind the TV, there was a hole in the wall. I knew I shouldn't, but I reached into the hole and was sucked right into a magical portal. When I got to the other side, this is the incredible world I saw. Suddenly, I found myself on a mysterious island. I quickly looked behind myself, but the hole seemed to have disappeared. I decided I had better get familiar with my surroundings since it looked like I wasn't going back home very soon. When I looked around, I saw a beach with crystal blue water lapping at the shores and tall palm trees heavy with coconuts standing high above them. Sea grasses rustled in the gentle breeze, and tropical flowers released their fragrances. The sun was shining bright in this golden, beautiful world. As I looked out into the sparkling water, I thought I saw a fin flip, and the sound of tinkling laughter rang in my ears. The island was beautiful, comfortable, and safe feeling. It felt like the kind of place where magical things happened and goodness reigned. So now we know where we are. The next part, I'm going to tell about who is the main character of the story. I was definitely curious about the laughter I heard, so I moved toward the edge of the water. As I stepped into the water, a change started to come over me. I still felt like the same inquisitive, optimistic girl inside, but I noticed my legs started to tingle as scales started to appear. I quickly hopped back out of the water, and they went away. Cautiously, I dipped my toe back into the water, and again, purple, green, and turquoise blue scales started forming, running up my legs and ending at my waist. I went in deeper, and as I got up to my belly button, then my shoulders, my legs fused together, and I realized I was half fish, half human girl. I had gained the ability to change into a mermaid. I couldn't believe it. I turned into Sophia, the mermaid girl. As I swam back to the beach, the same thing happened in reverse, and my legs separated, and I was able to walk again. I dove into the water with excitement, opened my eyes and found that I could see and breathe with no problem at all. I liked this new place I found myself in and couldn't wait to explore the underwater world and the beautiful island. And you may have noticed that I set it up a couple times in there by insinuating that I saw flippers and I heard laughter and I turned into a mermaid. And so you might have guessed, oh, she doesn't want to be a YouTube star anymore. You might have guessed that I am going to have a problem with the mermaids, or the mermaids are going to present me with a problem. And so here is the next part of my story. Sorry, that's probably not very pleasant to listen to. After I realized I was amphibious and could breathe in and out of the water, I fearlessly dove in and began exploring the crystal clear water. I was swimming in a large cove. The land curling around the water made it feel like a calm, warm swimming pool with an opening that led to the ocean. I swam down deeper to look at the kelp beds and saw the flipping of fins that look a lot like mine. As I swam even closer to the kelp, I noticed that it wasn't all seaweed. Some of what I thought was kelp was actually hair attached to real mermaids. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I'm going to move this down now a little bit so you can see a little bit more of my story. I slowly swam closer to get a better look, and several merpeople darted away. I didn't want to scare them, but I also wanted them to understand that I was friendly, so I stopped and just floated for a moment. Oops, oh, sorry, you can't see the whole thing. I waved and smiled and noticed that while many of them had swam away, a few stayed close, curiously looking at me. One mermaid even swam a little closer to me. She looked back at the others as if asking them to stay close, then bravely swam toward me. I smiled again, and she smiled back, so I tried to say hello, but it all came out like bubbles and squeaks. She pointed, let me move this down. She pointed toward the surface of the water, so we both swam up our faces until our faces broke through. She burst into laughter as soon as she took a breath of air. "Who are you?" she asked. "Where are you from? We have never seen you before." I told her my name was Sophia, about how I had arrived and what happened when I walked into the water. As I told her my story, her face changed from curious to excited. "Do you mean to tell me that you can walk on the island as well as swim in the water like us?" I nodded. All right, and my story got long this time because this was interesting to me. So here's the rest of this. Get that framed in, right? Other merfolk were coming to the surface, one by one, as I told my story. They were listening to our conversation. The mermaid swam over to them, and they huddled together. All I could hear were murmurs of excitement. She swam back to me. "We need you, Sophia. We had our mother of pearl stolen from us. It is our most sacred gem. Without it, our queen is crying and sad every day, but we can't retrieve it, as we can't survive on land. Do you think you can cross the island and bring it back from Deadly the dragon?" My jaw dropped in surprise. I wasn't sure I could do what they were asking of me. All right, so as you can see, we figured out the problem of our story. So the problem is Deadly the dragon seems to have taken their mother of pearl, and their queen is very upset about this. And Sophia is being asked to go and get it from Deadly the dragon. So the problem, even though I wrote a whole lot, the problem didn't come about to right here, where she says, "We need you, Sophia. We had our mother of pearl stolen from us. It is our most sacred gem. Without it, our queen is crying and sad every day, but we can't retrieve it as we can't survive on land. Do you think you can cross the island and bring it back from Deadly the dragon?" So that's the problem that's happening in the story. So, do you remember what happened when Wilbur figured out that he was going to be next year's dinner? Is all of a sudden Charlotte whipped into motion And she started doing over and over different webs with different words in them. And from that, the story continues to develop. But she didn't just do one web, she did several webs. When Charlie goes into the chocolate factory at last, when he finally gets that golden ticket, he doesn't just go into the factory and one thing happens. Like, he doesn't go in and Willy Wonka says, oh, here, you can have the factory now. He has to go on a series of adventures before he gets that. And if we'd been able to finish Danny Champion of the World, you would have learned that they go on a series of adventures too and try to figure out a way to get all the pheasants from the woods. So this is just the beginning of our story. This part right here is going to lead us on the rest of our adventure. So your job today, friends, as you're writing, is to figure out how you're going to make an adventure happen. When I read Alana's story, she's talking about how she's in a candy world and she saw this sun that's made of chocolate and she wants to eat that chocolate sun. So I think that's the problem, is how to get up to the sun. And I'm really interested to see what your story is going to be and what your problem is. If you have not had your parents take a picture of your story yet, would you please have them do that today and send it to me? Even if you don't get to this part today, have them take a picture of what you've already written and send it to me because I really want to see it. I wanted to point out something else that I did in this story that was a little bit different. Excuse me, and this has to do with the grammar. While we were in school, we were talking a lot about main idea and supporting details. And every Monday, we would write a weekend news story where you would write the main idea, which was the big thing that you did, and then at least 3 things about that. And so I want to show you a little bit of what I did in this story today to show the main idea and supporting details and how I made that into paragraphs. So right here, I say, after I realized I was amphibious and could breathe in and out of water, I fearlessly dove in and began exploring the crystal clear water. The next part talks about exploring the crystal clear water. Then I said, I swam deeper to look at the kelp beds and saw the flipping of fins that looked a lot like mine. The next part is telling all about what I saw with the mermaids. So this part talked about exploring the water, where I said, I was swimming in a large cove. The land curling around the water made it feel like a calm swimming pool with an opening that led to the ocean. And then I have a new main idea. I swam down deeper to look at the kelp beds and saw the flipping of fins that looked a lot like mine. Then I say, as I swam closer, what did I see? I noticed it wasn't seaweed, some of it was hair. And then I even swam closer to get a better look, and mer people darted away. So I stopped and just floated there for a minute and let them get used to me because I didn't want to scare them. Then I waved. So this part is all about getting closer to the mer people and kind of introducing myself to them. I want to point out another thing that I did. This is something you'll need to do in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Every time I have a new main idea, did you notice that I left this space in the front? That's called an indent. And indents are 2 finger spaces for you. So you put 2 finger spaces on your paper and then you write your main idea. That tells the reader as they're reading that, oh, look, this is a new main idea right here. Oh, look, this is a new main idea right here too. If you spend some time looking at some published authors and some published books, guess what you're going to notice? You're going to notice those authors also use indents and main ideas to show their paragraphs. I know that I'm pushing you really hard to try a lot of new things, but this is something I want you to give a try. 2 finger spaces in your main idea. So just like what I did right here, where I left 2 finger spaces, wrote my main idea, and then my supporting details. I want you to give that a try too. All right, friends, thank you so much for watching this today. Like I said, send me your stories. I can't wait to read them. I love you. Bye-bye, and I will see you again soon.